So, welcome back from breakout rooms, everyone. We're coming to you from the past, pre-recording this session to accommodate 3 different time zones today because we've got some really great speakers joining this session, including Tara all the way from Social Traders in Australia. So we're really excited for this session, diving into a conversation about measure impact to maximize value and what that means. We always talk about measurement as a really core component of a good social procurement practice on the bisocial journey. And so we're really excited to dive deeper into that conversation today, talk about what these two amazing folks are doing in their organizations, and some practical tips along the way. So just to say a little bit more, we have Tara Anderson joining from Social Traders in Australia and Gwen Patrick from Shorefast in Newfoundland and Labrador. That's not where you are right now, but that is where Shorefast is based. And let's just dive in because we've got not a lot of time. So Tara, let's start with you. And for those who may not be familiar, can you give us like the quick rundown on what Social Traders is, what you do, and then some of your more recent measurement work and what that's led to?
Absolutely. Thanks, Emma. Really great to be here from the other side of the world, almost, in the future. So Social Traders, we're an industry body for social enterprise and social performance in Australia. We've been around since 2008, so 18th year now. And we work to build a thriving social enterprise across Australia. And one of the main ways we do that for the last 10 years, our work's focused on social procurement. So we've been building the social procurement market in Australia, all around the country, starting up the East Coast, and now it's a national practice that's working across multiple governments, and 150 business members that are part of Social Traders are engaging in the work. We certify social enterprises here. We've got 700 social enterprise suppliers, and our job at Social Traders is to do that connection work between the buyers and the suppliers and help educate on both sides of that fence. So suppliers are better able to win work, and buyers are more able to do often the change management work that's required inside business or inside government to look at how procurement practices can be a little bit flexed, a little bit changed in order to broaden out the types of suppliers that are being worked with. And the measurement work that we do is we actually track social procurement spend and we convert that into impact outcomes. So what we're doing is we've built a measurement system where when we certify a social enterprise, we collect 200 different data points on them. And that means when we collect the spend from our buyer members, we can actually then do a matching process through our system, which means we can convert social procurement spend by dollar into impact outcomes for people and communities and the environment. So what we do on an annual basis is we do that at a national level. And in our last report, we saw that there's been $1.1 billion spent now with certified social enterprise suppliers over 7 years. And that we can convert directly into impact outcomes. For example, that's 10,000 jobs that have been created for marginalised communities that wouldn't have otherwise have access to employment. And then we can break that down and say they were people with disabilities, they were migrants and refugees, they were women escaping domestic violence. So you can actually then start to see the real impact of changing buying behaviour. Just switching to a different supplier means that you're actually creating all of this additional impact on top of the goods and services that you would have been buying anyway. So we then break that down nationally, as I said, and then we give all of our buyer members that we work with an individual impact report so they can see inside their business what their procurement spend has achieved. And then they can use that as an advocacy tool to take back inside business and up into the C-suites and exec teams to say, look what we've done just because we switched some of our procurement spend. So it's really exciting to be able to tell those stories because it inspires more.
Absolutely. And the numbers are so impactful. I think people understand numbers in a different way than just saying, this is what we've seen, this is what we're learning about this. And I was reading through your report as well that there's been growth year over year, and you're able to sort of track that progress over time as well and what that all means. So, yeah.
Absolutely. So there's been annual growth for the last 7 years. And that's just ticking up all the time with the number of suppliers, the number of buyers, and then the overall spend. So that's that total of 1.1 billion that we mentioned, but every year that's ticking up. So it's an average of 8% increase over time. So it's just
Hmm.
becoming more of a standard practice, which is great to see.
And other than like showing back that value to the buyers and being able to tell that national story, is there any other motivation behind why you do that measurement reporting?
It's about policy. So we work a lot with government. So we take that into all levels of government across Australia. We have federal, we have states, and then we have local councils. And we use that to then say, this is why we need to create policy settings that support diverse suppliers and support social enterprise suppliers. Because when a policy setting is in place, we know it unlocks more buying from social enterprises. It does change market behaviour. So we use it as an advocacy tool to go in and say, look, here's a proof of concept of what's been done. Here's the growth that can be achieved. Here's the direct impact outcomes and the public savings that are created through those people that are now in work that wouldn't have otherwise had work is the reason why government has a real incentive to engage in this space.
Yeah, absolutely. That social return on investment is so key. Gwen, I'd love to hear from you a bit more about Shorefast and the sort of unique approach you're taking with this new economic nutrition label. I think this is probably new to a lot of folks on in this event. So can you tell us a bit more about what you're measuring and why this came about?
Perfect. Yeah, thank you so much. My name is Gwen Patrick. I'm originally from Salt Spring Island, but you'll see currently based in Toronto and work for Shorefast based on Fogo Island and constantly traveling. So a little bit everywhere across the country. So I work for Shorefast, specifically the Shorefast Institute for Place-Based Economies, which is a new initiative of Shorefast. Shorefast is a registered Canadian charity based on Fogo Island, Newfoundland, that was originally founded in 2004 by Zita Cobb and two of her siblings with the purpose of building economic resilience on Fogo Island, really to add a second leg to the primary industry of fishing. And one of the main tools that we do this is through social business. So we now have five community businesses, with the main one being the Fogo Island Inn. And the Institute, the Shorefast Institute, is a next iteration formally launching at the end of this year, which is translating our 20 years now of economic development experience on Fogo Island for places and other organizations and institutions across the country wanting to learn more about our place-based economic development work and to create a space to learn from each other. And economic nutrition is one of many tools that we're wanting to make available. So it was founded and created by one of my colleagues, Diane Hodgins, in 2018 as a way to help communicate where the money goes for our first business, the Fogo Island Inn. And if anyone's aware of the inn, has a large price tag that, of course, when you see that, your first question should be, where the heck does all that money go? And I think we talked about it, stories can only go so far, but being able to show those numbers is something different. So using the nutrition labeling concept, where maybe I'm off work, I'm going to the grocery store, I just want a bag of chips, I'm not checking the nutrition label, but maybe I have some friends coming over and I know that they have some restrictions, and then I'm flipping it over. So it's a tool that I can use it to align to my health goals if I want. So we wanted to create a label that people could, both us as an organization and others spending money with us, can align the health goals of their local economy with their purchasing decisions. And I'll make sure that there's a link of the economic nutrition label in the chat when I talk through it so that you can see. So I'll make sure that's in there now, but you'll see that the top of the economic nutrition label shows where your money goes. So both local for us, it's Fogo Island, then Newfoundland, then Canada, and then international. And the bottom is what it pays for. So it's almost like a really pared down version of a financial statement. So I was a financial statement auditor before this and can tell you that when you look at statements, you really need quite intimate knowledge, usually of the company and of accounting, to really take away and make that useful to understand the story. The bottom is meant to be a really quick, easy to grasp statement and snapshot of where the main expense categories for a business are when you're making a purchase. And it's been hands down one of the best tools we've been able to create for people being able to understand our procurement philosophy, because both with making the inn and for all of our businesses, we always prioritize Fogo Island, if not Fogo Island, Newfoundland, if not Canada, and if not countries, our close trading partners, or with equal or equivalent labor standards to Canada. And it's really been something that's been able to amplify our story and really hold us accountable to the community.
And I think that's great because it does tie into, like some of the conversations that are definitely top of mind right now about buying local, supporting local economies and community strength and resiliency, which is, of course, where this um, event title comes from. The procurement for
Yeah,
resilient communities, is really top of mind right now. And so how can people really understand where their dollars are going and who aligns with what you care about, make your money matter, put your money where your mouth is, all of those kinds of
completely.
taglines that come up. Um, for both of you, and Tara, maybe let's start with you. What are some of the key outcomes or maybe surprising insights that you've found in your measurement efforts?
Yeah, I mean, lots, so much. Data is amazing. Like when you start measuring this stuff, you can tell, as you were just saying, Gwen, so many stories from this that then can inform practice, which is the ultimate point of this, and can inform policy and can inform advocacy, and change management. Some of the things that are really interesting to us is we've been tracking this data for 7 years now, so we can see the year-on-year trend of what's happening in the social procurement world. And in Australia, some of the really interesting things there are industries are the dynamic is changing. So previously it was mostly about construction and infrastructure and property. And now we're seeing many more industries buying from social enterprises, including education, banking and finance, FMCG, energy, lots of different types. And the motivations for doing social procurement are also changing. So previously in Australia, it was very much about policy, which is strong in Victoria in particular. And now it's shifted into ESG and corporate values and sustainability. So people are doing this work for a very different reason, which is exciting to see because that's where it gets embedded in business to a much greater extent than if it's just a policy mandate or a tick box exercise. And then we can also dive down and have a look at what are the categories of spend. So what types of social enterprises and diverse suppliers are people buying from? And often social procurement is seen as, it starts with sort of catering or cleaning and a lot of those categories where there's many social enterprises and it's a quick win and an easy way to start. And what we're seeing in Australia now is a shift over into completely different categories like engineering and research and tech, into architecture, planning, design, transport, freight, logistics, and training and education services, all popping up as new categories of spend, which is a way we can then talk to the market about for social enterprises, if you're not in these industries, here's the market gap that you could move into. And for our buyers, if you're not yet looking for social enterprises in these categories, you should be because they exist. So it gives us a way to then have different conversations with our members and activate the market in a different way. And then the ultimate piece on top of all of that is just seeing the growth over time of what our members are doing. We know that 62% are increasing their spend with certified social enterprises, 64% are increasing the number they're buying from, and 49% are increasing the categories that they're working with. So that broadening out of social procurement. So it just gives us really exciting stuff that we can then use to create a conversation and change behavior.
I love that. And it's great. Yeah, like saying, there's social enterprises in so many industries and sectors and they sell everything. And it's not just the easy suspects, although it's great to uplift those as well, for sure. Yeah.
Yep, yep.
Gwen, for yourself, key outcomes or insights you've found.
I think for us, since starting the economic nutrition labeling for the inn, we've since transformed it and have now used it at all 5 of our businesses on Fogo Island. And it's really had an impact on how we spend as well as how people spend with us too. I'd say it's had a transformative impact of turning now every expense that we make is now a very conscious decision as to whether this is an investment into the local economy. And we also know that this information is public every year, which helps hold us accountable to the community as well as the customers that are spending money at our businesses as well. So for one thing, it's been a very helpful benchmarking and data collection tool for us, looking at our trend and how we've spent over time at all 5 of our businesses. And they each have different benchmarks. So for instance, at the inn, we always try to hit and make sure that over half of the money spent at the inn never leaves the shores of Fogo Island when we're looking at the label. And similarly for labor, we know that in the hotel and hospitality industry, it's typically around 30% goes towards labor. We always want that to also be well over half spent on labor too, and that's a big point of pride for us. So we've been able to create and develop specific benchmarks and track over time. And what's interesting is I think there's no business that we have that has 100% Fogo Island only spend target. For us, it's about making those really conscious decisions and trying to develop a robust supply chain network that helps Fogo Island's economy be better connected into the whole, which then in turn helps us meet our benchmarks, helps us meet our goals, but also further strengthens the local economy in the process. So I think there's often I guess, misconception with social enterprise that it's always the profits that are going to be reinvested, whereas for us, it's really through the spend. And this has been one of many tools that we use to help us make sure our spend is really what's driving that economic impact.
We definitely advocate for social enterprises to also be practicing social procurement, and often it's a little easier than if you're a big municipality, you know. There are fewer trade agreements or restrictions that apply to you, and I know for Bisocial Canada, our policy is just that whenever possible, we prioritize purchasing from social enterprise. But we also work with clients to bring in sort of that same piece that you're talking about, Gwen, about setting those benchmarks, about understanding who you're buying from in the first place. And I know, Tara, you do this as well at Social Traders, that really getting that baseline, you can't set targets without it. You can't know where you need to work on or what great work you're already doing that no one's been talking about.
Completely.
Yeah. Um, so let's talk about what advice maybe folks listening to this conversation could benefit from. I know, um, as we mentioned, that social procurement needs measurement to succeed, like we're just saying. But what are some pieces of guidance you both have to actually make that happen, to put rubber on the road? And Tara, maybe starting with you.
Yeah, I think the piece about targets is really important. It comes back to, what gets measured gets managed. And so the most important part of any measurement work in this space is actually setting something that you want to achieve. And we talk to our businesses about thinking about what's material for you and your business. So for example, if it's in the property industry or a local council, then local community is really important. Local jobs are really important and local outcomes are really important. So setting those targets around what you might like to achieve there then informs it guides who you're buying from and what kind of activity you're doing. And then it's starting to just capture, the first level of it is capturing your spend, like actually tracking which suppliers you're buying from, in which categories, where they're local outcomes or social outcomes or environmental outcomes. And then starting to talk to those suppliers to gather those stories. Because the stories are really powerful. So if you don't have the impact measurement systems in place, that's okay. You can still do this work and you should still be doing this work. Capturing the total spend in the different categories that you're working within, and then thinking about what are those suppliers, the outcomes, the ultimate outcomes, and the people that they're supporting, how they're supporting the environment through their work. And grabbing those case studies and then going and sharing them really widely.
Awesome, thank you. And Gwen, for yourself.
Think, well, a couple pieces of advice. One really is not to start from scratch. There's a lot of incredible resources with Bisocial Canada, and this is a selfish plug that for economic nutrition through the Institute, for the first time since starting economic nutrition, we're making it available for businesses, organizations, municipalities across Canada to help us pilot this summer. So for those interested in using an economic nutrition label, we're also putting out additional light resources, even not through the pilot program, on our local procurement strategies. Then you can visit, and I'll make sure that there's a link in the chat as well to economicnutrition.org to learn more about the pilot and see if this is something of interest for your organization wanting to use and develop an economic nutrition label. And I guess another piece of advice on that is also to ensure you're engaging and looping in accountants in this too. I know we always joke that we have too many CPAs at our organization, but they're an incredible resource that even dealing beyond financial metrics, but really developing and helping with any of these metrics in general. And this was, again, another resource developed by the CPAs at our firm as well, and is now transformed into this incredible tool. So that's another tidbit as well.
Wonderful, thank you. So to wrap us up, I think it would just be great to hear one sort of inspiring piece of data or a story that you've collected from this that has inspired you personally in this work. And Gwen, maybe let's start with you.
I think I have it written down because these numbers, I just want to make sure I get right, but
Mhm.
it's about the one piece of data that inspired our work, both through economic nutrition and our supply chain development, but also the Shorefast Institute's work in general, is the number of communities in Canada, because it always blows my mind. So there's around 4,000 incorporated communities in Canada that's using CRA data, 434 First Nations, 53 Inuit, and 8 Métis communities in Canada, plus thousands more unincorporated places, including Salt Spring Island, where I grew up, where that's counted in a much larger incorporated area, not in that total. And that always blows my mind. And something that inspires me is to create working and to attend events like this and support organizations and to do the work that helps create better, stronger connections between all those places. It's both super critical for developing that supply chain network that supports your whole procurement strategy, but also just on a more broader economic development scale as well. Creating those strong connections creates greater national prosperity as a whole, and even connections overseas as well. So that's one piece that always inspires me.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. And Tara.
Similar thing of connecting the data back to the individuals and the people and the communities. And so I mentioned before, there's been 10,000 jobs created through the social procurement spend in Australia, which is just massive, because these are not just jobs. These are jobs for people that wouldn't otherwise have work. These are jobs for people that would be shut out of the system otherwise. And it's when you translate that all the way through to the story at the end of the day. And one of my there's so many inspiring stories, but one in particular from recently was one of those jobs was with a social enterprise that supports women escaping domestic violence, to help them back into work and recover their sense of, economic stability and independence. And then hearing the stories from one of those women, so one of those 10,000, and she talked about her job as being, it's not just a job and it's not just a financial impact. It's about recovering her sense of self-worth after what she's gone through. And that is just that is everything for a person to be able to live a fulfilling and happy life. And that's the direct result of a buyer changing their purchasing behavior into switching to a social enterprise supplier that helps, in this case, that particular woman to get back on her feet and recover a sense of confidence, and to start again after a really, really tough situation. So it's that translation all the way through, and remembering that that's the impact we're creating at the end of the day when we're making these decisions that can seem really far away, but when you use the data to connect to the story, you can see that there's actually a direct line to that particular woman who now has a chance that she wouldn't have had otherwise. And that's just amazing.
But yeah, that's a very beautiful story, and there's countless like that, which is the best part. And I do think it's a great point that the storytelling and the data have to go hand in hand, and that, the numbers help some people understand and the stories help others, and together those really make a difference. And yeah, just all the different forms of measurement that are so important. So thank you both for your time today. I think that's about the end of our session, but it's been really wonderful to hear, the rapid fire, quick versions of everything today in our short 20-minute session. And thank you so much for your time. And I'll be handing it over to our COO, Tori Williamson, who will wrap up the event for us today. So thanks.